A Vampire Romance, written by Amelia Hart. Chapter 1. First words. The silence in the car was the kind that weighed, heavy and suffocating, pressing down on the leather seats and tinted windows. Nathaniel gripped the steering wheel tighter than necessary, his knuckles white against the black surface. In the rearview mirror, Julian sat perfectly still in his booster seat, staring out the window at passing streetlights that painted his small face in alternating shadows and gold. 2 years. 730 days since his son had spoken a single word. Nathaniel pulled into the parking lot of the Roasted Oak at exactly 6:47 p.m. The restaurant was modest, the kind of family place with checkered curtains in the windows and a hand-painted sign that had faded from too many summers. Nothing like the exclusive establishments he usually frequented, where servers knew not to ask why he never ate and other patrons minded their own business. But those places were cold, and Julian needed warmth. "We are here." Nathaniel turned in his seat. Julian looked at him with those gray eyes so much like his own, ancient eyes in a child's face. No response, no nod. Just that blank stare that had become familiar over the past 2 years. Nathaniel climbed out and opened Julian's door. The boy unbuckled himself slowly, mechanically, and slid to the ground. His small hand found his father's palm, cold fingers against colder fingers. The restaurant smelled like roasted chicken and fresh bread. Warm, human, alive. A hostess with bright red lipstick greeted them at the door. 2. She grabbed menus without waiting for an answer. "Follow me." They were led to a booth near the back, away from the families crowding the center tables. Nathaniel helped Julian into the seat, then slid in across from him. The boy stared at the salt shaker, his hands folded in his lap. "Can I start you with drinks?" The hostess set down menus. Water for me, chocolate milk for him. Nathaniel glanced at Julian, who showed no interest in the menu, the restaurant, or anything at all. The hostess left. Around them, the dinner rush created a symphony of clinking silverware and overlapping conversations. A baby cried 3 tables over. Someone laughed too loud near the kitchen. Normal sounds, the kind that used to fill their home before Evelyn died. Nathaniel watched his son trace invisible patterns on the table with one finger. 7 years old and he looked 5. Pale, thin, barely eating. The therapists called it selective mutism, triggered by trauma. They said he would talk when he was ready. 2 years was a long time to wait. "Julian?" Nathaniel kept his voice soft. "You can order anything you want. Anything at all. Nothing." The finger kept tracing. Footsteps approached. Nathaniel looked up, ready to order, and his entire world stopped. The waitress had reddish-brown hair pulled into a loose ponytail, escaping strands framing a face dotted with freckles across the bridge of her nose. Green eyes, bright as spring leaves, crinkled at the corners as she smiled. The same smile. The exact same smile. Nathaniel's chest tightened. His hands clenched into fists beneath the table. Evelyn. No, not Evelyn. Evelyn was dead, buried in the cemetery on the hill where white roses grew wild. This woman was alive, breathing, holding a notepad and pen, wearing a name tag that read, Claire. "Hi there." Claire's voice was warm, slightly husky, different from Evelyn's soprano. "I'm Claire, and I'll be taking care of you tonight. Can I get you started with something to drink, or do you need a few more minutes?" Nathaniel opened his mouth to speak. Nothing came out, because across from him, Julian had lifted his head. His gray eyes, dead and distant for 2 years, were suddenly wide and focused, staring at Claire with an intensity that made Nathaniel's undead heart ache. "Oh." Claire noticed Julian's stare and smiled wider. "Hey, buddy. What's your name?" Julian's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Then, in a voice so small it was barely a whisper, so rusty from disuse it cracked halfway through, Julian spoke. "Mommy." The word hit Nathaniel in the chest harder than any stake. Claire's smile faltered, confusion flickering across her features. Around them, the restaurant noise continued, oblivious to the miracle and tragedy that had just collided at table 12. "Julian." Nathaniel's voice came out strangled. His son looked at him, then back at Claire, and reached across the table with both hands. "Mommy, Julian said again, clearer this time, his small hands grasping for Claire's. Mommy, you came back. Claire took an instinctive step backward, her notepad clutched to her chest. Her eyes darted to Nathaniel, seeking explanation, perhaps thinking this was some elaborate joke. Nathaniel couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. His son was talking. After 2 years of silence, after 730 days of nothing, Julian was talking. I'm sorry. Claire's voice was gentle, uncertain. She crouched down beside the table, bringing herself to Julian's eye level. Sweetie, I'm not your mommy. My name is Claire. You look like her. Julian's hands were still reaching, trembling now. You look just like Mommy. Tears spilled down his small cheeks. His whole body shook. And Claire, the stranger who looked like a ghost, did something that made Nathaniel's throat close completely. She took Julian's hands in hers. Hey, it's okay. Claire's thumbs rubbed gentle circles on Julian's palms. It's okay to miss your mommy. That must be really hard. Julian nodded, silent tears streaming faster. I'm not her. Claire's own eyes were suspiciously bright. But I'm here right now. Is that okay? Another nod. Nathaniel found his voice. I apologize. He hasn't spoken in 2 years. Not since his mother passed away. You look remarkably like her. Claire looked up at him, and Nathaniel saw the exact moment she understood. The confusion melted into compassion, and she squeezed Julian's hands tighter. I'm so sorry. She looked between them. I can't imagine how hard that's been. You have other tables. Nathaniel gestured to the crowded restaurant, trying to give her an exit, trying to maintain some dignity in this moment that felt like his chest was being ripped open. They can wait. Claire shifted so she was kneeling beside the booth. She didn't let go of Julian's hands. What's your name, sweetheart? Julian. The word was thick with tears. That's a really nice name. Claire smiled at him. Do you like dinosaurs, Julian? A pause. Then a tiny nod. Me too. I have a nephew who's crazy about them. His favorite is the Triceratops because it has 3 horns. What's yours? T-Rex. Julian's voice was barely audible, but it was there. Present. Real. Oh, the T-Rex is awesome. King of the dinosaurs. Claire glanced at the menu on the table. I bet you're hungry. Do you like chicken nuggets? Julian nodded. We have really good ones here. They're shaped like dinosaurs, too. Would you like that? Yes, please. 2 more words. Nathaniel felt something crack inside him, something that had been frozen solid for 2 years. Claire finally released Julian's hands and stood, though she stayed close to the booth. Okay. I'll put that order in for you. And for you, sir? I'm not hungry. It was true. He never was. Not for food, anyway. Coffee, then? Water? Water is fine. Claire scribbled on her notepad, but her eyes kept returning to Julian, who was watching her with desperate hope. I'll be right back with your food, okay, Julian? I promise. Okay. The word was soft, but clear. She walked toward the kitchen, and Nathaniel watched his son's eyes follow her every step until she disappeared through the swinging doors. She's not Mommy. Julian's voice was hoarse from disuse. But she's nice. Yes. Nathaniel's own voice wasn't much steadier. She is very nice. Can she stay? She has to work, Julian. She has other people to help. Julian's face crumpled. But I want her to stay. I know. Nathaniel reached across the table and took his son's hand. I know you do. They sat in silence again, but this time it was different. Expectant. Alive. Claire returned with chocolate milk and water, then again with dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets that she set in front of Julian with a flourish. 1 T-Rex order for a very brave boy. Julian picked up a nugget shaped like a stegosaurus. This one isn't a T-Rex. You're right, Claire grinned. But he's friends with the T-Rex, see? They come as a set. The corners of Julian's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close enough to make Nathaniel's chest ache. For the next 20 minutes, whenever Claire passed their table, she stopped. Just for a moment. Just to ask Julian if his nuggets were good, or to tell him a quick story about her nephew, or to refill his chocolate milk. Each time, Julian responded. Quiet words, but words nonetheless. Other servers shot Claire annoyed looks as she neglected her other tables. A man in a button-down shirt near the kitchen, probably the manager, watched with crossed arms but didn't intervene. When Julian had eaten 3 nuggets and pushed the plate away, Claire brought the check. She set it down with a gentle smile. "You did so good today, Julian. I'm really proud of you." Julian grabbed her hand before she could step away. "Will you be here tomorrow?" Claire glanced at Nathaniel, uncertain. He nodded once. "I work on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays." Claire squeezed Julian's hand. 6 to 11 at night. "We'll come back." Julian looked at his father, pleading. Nathaniel pulled out his wallet. Inside was more cash than any normal person carried, along with several credit cards and a simple business card. He placed $500 bills on the table along with the card. Claire's eyes widened. "Sir, I can't accept that. The meal was only $37. You gave my son his voice back." Nathaniel stood, helping Julian out of the booth. "That's worth far more than $500. But I didn't do anything. I just talked to him." "Exactly." Nathaniel met her green eyes, so heartbreakingly familiar, yet so completely different. "No one else has been able to do that in 2 years. Please, take it." Claire picked up the bills hesitantly, then the card. She read it aloud. "Nathaniel Winters, CEO, Winters Holdings. If you ever need anything." Nathaniel took Julian's hand. "Or if we can ever repay your kindness. You don't owe me anything." But Claire slipped the card into her apron pocket. The bills she tried to hand back. "This is too much." "Keep it." Nathaniel guided Julian toward the exit. "Please." They were almost to the door when Julian pulled free and ran back. Claire knelt automatically, and Julian threw his arms around her neck. "Thank you." He whispered it into her hair. "Thank you for being nice." Claire hugged him back, and Nathaniel saw her blink rapidly. "You're so welcome, sweetheart. You come back and see me, okay?" Julian nodded and returned to his father. They walked out into the parking lot, where the spring air smelled like rain and new things. In the car, Julian buckled himself in and pressed his face against the window, looking back at the restaurant. "She really does look like Mommy." His voice was wondering. "Is that bad?" Nathaniel started the engine, his hands gripping the wheel. "No, Julian. That's not bad." "Good." Julian was quiet for a moment. "I miss Mommy." "I know. I miss her too. But Claire is nice. Different nice. Her own nice." Nathaniel pulled out of the parking lot, his son's words echoing in his mind. Different nice. Her own nice. Inside the restaurant, Claire stood at table 12, holding $500 and a business card, while her manager approached with questions in his eyes. But all she could think about was a little boy who hadn't spoken in 2 years until he saw her face and called her Mommy. She tucked the card deeper into her pocket and got back to work. But her hands were shaking, and her heart wouldn't stop racing, and she had no idea that she had just changed 3 lives forever. Chapter 2. Words like seeds. 3 days passed like 3 years. Julian stopped eating again. He wandered the mansion's empty halls, pressing his small hands against windows that overlooked the garden where Evelyn used to grow roses. At night, Nathaniel heard him crying through the closed bedroom door. Those silent sobs that shook his thin shoulders, but made no sound. On the second day, Julian brought Nathaniel a piece of paper. His handwriting was shaky, letters formed with the careful precision of a child who hadn't written in months. "Please, Claire." Nathaniel stared at the 2 words, his chest tight. He had spent 400 years mastering control over his emotions, over his hunger, over his nature. But his 7-year-old son had just destroyed that control with a crayon and notebook paper. "Julian." Nathaniel knelt beside him. "She was being kind. That's her job. We can't expect her to." Julian pressed the paper into his father's hand and walked away. That night, Nathaniel stood in his study staring at Claire's name tag information he'd acquired through perfectly legal means. Claire Whitmore, 28 years old, worked at the Roasted Oak for 6 months. Before that, a bookstore that had closed down. No criminal record. No family in the city except an elderly aunt in a nursing home, and a deceased husband. Car accident. 3 years ago. She understood loss. That explained the gentleness, the immediate compassion. She knew what it felt like to have your world collapse. Nathaniel picked up his phone 3 times before finally making the call. The Roasted Oak was busy on Tuesday evening. Nathaniel had timed their arrival for 6:15 p.m., and right after the dinner rush started. Julian practically vibrated in his booster seat as they were led to a different table, a 4-top near the window. Claire was across the restaurant, taking an order from a family with 2 toddlers. She hadn't seen them yet. Julian's hands twisted together in his lap. His eyes tracked her movements with desperate intensity. Then she turned, carrying a tray of drinks, and her gaze swept the dining room. When she spotted them, she stopped so abruptly that water sloshed over the rim of a glass. Nathaniel saw her take a breath, saw her square her shoulders. Then she delivered the drinks to her table and walked over to them, her expression carefully neutral, but her hands gripping her notepad too tight. "Hi." She looked directly at Julian. "I wasn't sure you'd come back." Julian's mouth opened, closed. His small hands came up, gesturing frantically. "It's okay." Claire slid into the empty chair beside him without asking permission. "Take your time." "Hi." The word came out as barely more than a whisper, but it was there. Claire's entire face transformed. "Hi, Julian. It's really good to see you again." "You too." 2 more words, and Nathaniel felt his throat close. "Are you hungry tonight?" "Yes." "Good. I was hoping you'd try our mac and cheese. It's homemade, and between you and me, it's way better than the chicken nuggets." Julian nodded, then pointed at Claire's name tag. "Pretty." She glanced down at the simple plastic rectangle. "My name tag?" "No, you." The tips of Claire's ears turned pink. She cleared her throat. "That's very sweet, thank you." Her eyes darted to Nathaniel. "And for you, Mr. Winters." "Just water." He paused. "And Nathaniel is fine." "Nathaniel." She tested the name, writing it at the top of her notepad. "That's a strong name. Old family name. 400 years old, to be precise." Claire stood to leave, but Julian caught her sleeve. "Wait. I have to put your order in, sweetheart. But I'll come right back. I promise." "Okay." He released her reluctantly. Nathaniel watched her walk away, noting the subtle limp in her left leg. Old injury. Well compensated for, but still present. The way she navigated around the other servers suggested familiarity, comfort. This place was more than just a job to her. She came back. Julian's voice was full of wonder. "We came to her restaurant." Nathaniel corrected gently. "She works here, but she sat with me." "Yes, she did." Claire returned throughout the meal. Quick visits between her other tables, bringing Julian's mac and cheese, refilling his juice, asking about his day. Each time Julian offered her a new word. "Thank you." "Nice." "Good." Single words, but they were treasures. Precious stones pulled from the depths of his grief. The manager, a stocky man with gray temples and kind eyes, watched from near the kitchen. He caught Nathaniel's gaze once and nodded slightly. Permission, or perhaps just understanding. At the end of the meal, Claire brought the check and a small cookie wrapped in plastic. "For the road." "You were so brave today, Julian. Can we come back?" Julian asked. Claire hesitated. "I work Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. 6 to 11 at night. We'll be here Thursday." Nathaniel handed her his credit card without looking at the total. "You don't have to." "We want to." He met her eyes. "If that's all right with you." Something shifted in her expression. She bit her lower lip, thinking, then nodded. "Okay. Thursday." They came back Thursday. And Saturday. Always the same table by the window. Always during Claire's shift. By Saturday, Julian was speaking in short sentences. "This is really good. I like the colors on your pen. Your hair is pretty today." Claire responded to each comment with patience and genuine interest. She told him about her nephew who loved dinosaurs, about the aunt who raised her after her parents died, about the husband she'd lost and how some days were harder than others, but you kept going anyway. Nathaniel found himself leaning forward to catch her words, watching the way her hands moved when she talked, noting how different she was from Evelyn despite their physical similarities. Evelyn had been quiet, contemplative, preferring music to words. Claire talked with her whole body, animated and present. It was the difference between a photograph and a painting of the same landscape. Similar, but fundamentally distinct. On Saturday, after Julian had eaten his weight in French fries, and Claire had told them about the time her nephew got his head stuck in a stair railing, the boy asked the question that changed everything. "Can you visit us?" Claire froze, her smile faltering. "Visit you?" "At our house." Julian looked at his father, then back to her. "Please?" "Julian, I'm sure Claire has plans." "I don't." She said it quickly, then seemed surprised at herself. "I mean, I work 3 days a week and the rest of the time I just read or visit my aunt. But she sleeps a lot now. Tomorrow is Sunday." Nathaniel heard himself say, "If you're free in the afternoon, we would be honored to have you." The restaurant noise faded into background static. Claire looked between them, her green eyes uncertain. "I don't want to intrude on your family time. You're helping my son." Nathaniel kept his voice level. "That's not an intrusion. That's a gift. I'm not a therapist. I don't have training. You're you." Julian reached across the table and took her hand. "That's enough." Claire stared at their joined hands. When she looked up, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Okay, Sunday afternoon, but just for a little while." Julian's smile could have lit the entire restaurant. After they left, Nathaniel drove in silence while Julian hummed in the back seat. An actual sound of happiness, the first in 2 years. "She's different from Mommy," Julian said suddenly. Nathaniel's hands tightened on the wheel. "Yes, she is. Is that okay?" "Yes, Julian. That's more than okay." In the restaurant, Claire stood at table 12 with Nathaniel's business card in her hand, and Dale approaching with concern written across his weathered face. "That's the 3rd time this week," he said. "I know. That man's loaded. You saw the tip he left Tuesday? $200. She'd tried to refuse it. He'd insisted. And the kid," Dale shook his head. "I've never seen anything like it. He doesn't talk to anyone but you. His mother died. I look like her." Claire slipped the card into her pocket. "It's complicated." "It's more than complicated, Claire. That family, they're not like us. You can see it in the way they move, the way the father watches everything. There's something. He's protective of his son. That's normal." "Maybe." Dale didn't look convinced. "Just be careful. But also," his expression softened, "be kind. That little boy needs kindness." "I know." Claire touched her pocket where the card rested. "I'll be careful. I promise." She finished her shift, drove home to her small apartment, and sat on her couch staring at Nathaniel's business card. In the corner, a photo of her late husband smiled from its frame. "I'm just helping a kid," she told the photograph. "That's all this is. Just helping." But her hands were shaking, and her heart wouldn't stop racing. And she knew, somehow, that tomorrow would change everything. Chapter 3. Broken Things. Healing. Claire arrived at the Winters mansion at 2 p.m. On Sunday, driving her 10-year-old sedan up a driveway lined with oak trees that had probably been planted before she was born. The house wasn't a house. It was an estate. Stone and glass and intimidating architecture that made her small apartment feel like a shoebox. She sat in her car for 3 full minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, before Julian appeared on the front steps. He waved frantically, jumping up and down, and all her hesitation evaporated. Claire climbed out, smoothing her casual sundress. She'd changed clothes 4 times that morning, finally settling on something that said friendly, but not trying too hard. "You came." Julian ran down the steps and grabbed her hand. "I thought maybe you wouldn't." "I promised, didn't I?" Claire let him pull her toward the entrance. "I always keep my promises." Nathaniel stood in the doorway, and Claire's breath caught. He wore dark jeans and a simple gray sweater, his white hair loose around his shoulders instead of tied back. More approachable than the suit-wearing figure from the restaurant, but somehow more intimidating in his casual elegance. Nathaniel never crossed thresholds before dusk. He hovered in doorways at daylight, a ritual of caution Claire had learned not to question. "Welcome." He stepped aside. "Please, come in." The interior was somehow worse than the exterior. Marble floors, sweeping staircases, art on the walls that looked museum-worthy. Claire felt profoundly out of place. "Your home is beautiful." She managed to keep her voice steady. It's too big. Nathaniel closed the door. But Julian likes the space. Can I show her my room? Julian tugged her hand. Please. Of course. Nathaniel gestured toward the stairs. I'll be in the study if you need anything. Julian pulled Claire up the staircase, chattering the entire way. My room is on the second floor, and it has big windows, and I can see the garden where Mommy used to grow roses, but they don't grow anymore because nobody knows how. Claire's chest tightened at the casual mention of his mother, at how easily the words flowed now. Julian's room was painted soft blue with clouds on the ceiling. Shelves overflowed with books and toys. A train set covered half the floor. Drawings papered one entire wall, some clearly recent, others faded with age. This one is a T-Rex. Julian pointed to a crayon drawing. And this is a Stegosaurus. I drew them yesterday because I was excited you were coming. They're wonderful. Claire crouched to examine them closer. You're a really good artist. Mommy used to draw with me. Julian said it softly, matter of fact. She liked painting better. There's some in the hallway. Would you like to draw something now? Claire spotted the art supplies on a small table by the window. Julian nodded and immediately started gathering crayons. They settled on the floor, a large sheet of paper between them. Claire drew a simple tree. Julian added dinosaurs around it. Do you have kids? Julian asked, focused on coloring a triceratops purple. No, I have a nephew, though. He's about your age. Does he like dinosaurs? He loves them. Almost as much as you. Julian added more details to his drawing. Do you have a mommy? Claire's hand paused mid-stroke. I did. She died when I was little. My aunt raised me. That's sad. Julian looked up at her. Was your aunt nice? Very nice. She taught me to bake cookies and read stories. She's in a nursing home now. She sleeps a lot, like old people do. Julian nodded wisely. Do you have a daddy? He died with my mommy. Car accident. Julian processed this, his small face serious. And you had a husband too? Claire set down her crayon. Yes. He died 3 years ago. Also a car accident. You lost a lot of people. Julian's voice was small. I did. Claire's throat felt tight. It hurts. Every day it still hurts. But I keep going. How? The question was so direct, so achingly honest, that Claire had to take a breath. I remember the good things. I talk to people who care about me. I let myself be sad when I need to be sad. And I look for new things to make me happy. Julian stared at his drawing. His hands twisted together in his lap. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. My mommy died too. The first time he'd said it out loud. Claire saw it in his face, the way his eyes widened slightly, as if surprised by his own words. I know, sweetheart. Claire shifted closer. That must hurt so much. It does. Julian's eyes filled with tears. Every day. I miss her every day. Of course you do. Claire opened her arms, and Julian fell into them, his small body shaking with sobs that had been held back for 2 years. She held him while he cried, making soft, soothing sounds, rubbing circles on his back. In the doorway, visible from the corner of her eye, Nathaniel stood frozen. His expression was raw, broken. A father watching his son finally release the grief he'd been carrying alone. Their eyes met over Julian's head. Nathaniel's were suspiciously bright. He mouthed 2 words. Thank you. Claire nodded and held Julian tighter. After the tears subsided, they made cookies in the enormous kitchen. Julian measured flour while Claire mixed butter and sugar. They got more ingredients on themselves than in the bowl. And Julian laughed when Claire accidentally dropped an egg on the floor. Nathaniel appeared in the doorway, watching silently. Want to help? Claire offered, whisking the batter. I don't cook. He said it carefully, as if afraid of intruding. It's easy. Come on. She gestured him over. He moved like someone crossing dangerous territory, but he came. Claire handed him a spoon. Stir this while I add the chocolate chips. They worked together in comfortable silence, Julian narrating every step. When the cookies went in the oven, the boy insisted they watch through the glass door as they baked. Why don't you eat, Daddy? Julian asked suddenly. You never eat with me. Nathaniel's expression shuddered. I have a medical condition. I eat different food, at different times. Oh, Julian accepted this easily. That's okay, as long as you're not sick. I'm not sick. Nathaniel's hand rested briefly on his son's head. I promise. They ate warm cookies at the kitchen table, and Claire pretended not to notice that Nathaniel only sipped water. Julian talked between bites, more animated than she'd ever seen him. Can friend Claire come back? Julian asked, chocolate smeared on his chin. Friend Claire? Nathaniel's eyebrows rose. Can I call you that? Julian looked at Claire hopefully. You're my friend, right? Claire felt Nathaniel's eyes on her, assessing. She chose her words carefully. I'm definitely your friend, Julian, but you don't have to call me friend Claire. Just Claire is fine. But I want to, Julian insisted. Can I call you Miss Claire? Miss Claire works. Claire smiled. I like that. Miss Claire. Julian tested it, grinning. That's pretty. Actually, Nathaniel leaned forward, his voice gentle but firm. Julian, Claire has her own name. She's not your mother. She's a wonderful person who's being very kind to us. She can be a special friend, but she's herself. Does that make sense? Julian's face fell slightly. She's not mommy? No, sweetheart, I'm not. Claire took his hand. Your mommy was special. Nobody can replace her. But I can be your friend. Your special friend if you want. Julian thought about this, his face serious. Then he nodded. Okay. Friend Claire. Is that good? That's perfect. Claire squeezed his hand. They moved to the living room, where Julian picked an animated movie about dragons. Nathaniel tried to excuse himself, but Julian patted the couch between him and Claire. Sit here, Daddy. We can all watch together. So they sat, Julian in the middle. His small body relaxed in a way Nathaniel had never seen. Halfway through the movie, the boy's head drooped onto Claire's shoulder. Minutes later, he was asleep. He's exhausted. Claire whispered, not moving. Crying takes a lot of energy. He hasn't cried since the funeral. Nathaniel kept his voice low. 2 years of holding it in. Sometimes we need permission to grieve. Claire smoothed Julian's hair gently. Someone to witness it without judgment. You gave him that. He gave himself permission. I just happened to be there. They sat in silence, the movie playing forgotten on the screen. The afternoon light slanted through the windows, painting everything gold. How did your husband die? Nathaniel asked quietly. Drunk driver. Wrong place, wrong time. Claire's voice was steady. He was coming home from work. Never made it. I'm sorry. Me too. She looked at Julian's sleeping face. For a long time, I couldn't figure out how to keep going. Everything felt pointless. What changed? Nothing dramatic. I just woke up one day and realized he'd want me to live. Really live, not just exist. She glanced at Nathaniel. Your wife, how did she? Violence. Sudden and brutal. His jaw tightened. She was in the wrong place at the wrong time, too. That's why Julian stopped talking. The trauma was too much. The doctor said he might never speak again. Nathaniel looked at his sleeping son. Then you walked up to our table. I didn't do anything special. You did everything. His voice was fierce. You saw him. Really saw him. Not as a broken thing to be pitied, but as a person who needed kindness. Claire felt her cheeks warm. He's easy to care about. They fell into comfortable silence again. Outside, birds sang in the garden. Inside, Julian slept peacefully between 2 adults who were slowly learning what it meant to live after loss. When Claire finally left at 5 p.m., Julian woke up enough to hug her goodbye. You'll come back, right? His voice was sleepy but hopeful. If you want me to. I do. We do. He looked at his father for confirmation. You're welcome any time. Nathaniel walked her to the door. Truly. Claire drove home in a daze, her car smelling like chocolate chip cookies from the container Julian had insisted she take. At her apartment, she found herself smiling for no reason, remembering the feel of Julian's small hand in hers, the sound of his laughter, the way Nathaniel's gray eyes had softened when he watched them together. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Thank you for today. Julian is asking when you can visit again. Would Tuesday evening work? After your shift? Nathaniel. Claire stared at the message. This was becoming something. More than just helping a grieving child. Something that made her heart beat faster and her hands shake slightly. She typed back, Tuesday works. See you then. Then she sat on her couch, looked at her late husband's photo, and whispered, I think I'm ready to start living again. Chapter 4. Shadows and Truth. 4 weeks had passed since Claire first walked into the Winters mansion. She now visited twice a week, Tuesdays and Sundays, fitting the schedule around her restaurant shifts. Julian had transformed from a silent ghost into a chattering 7-year-old who asked endless questions and told elaborate stories about dragons and dinosaurs and space adventures. But Claire was starting to notice things that didn't add up. She arrived on a Tuesday evening, letting herself in through the front door that Nathaniel had told her to use freely. The house smelled like lemon polish and something else, something metallic and cold that she couldn't identify. Julian met her in the foyer, bouncing on his toes. Miss Claire, I made you a drawing. It's a T-Rex fighting a volcano. That sounds epic. Claire followed him toward the living room, her eyes catching on details she'd overlooked before. The windows had unusual tinting. The staff members she occasionally saw were all pale, moving with an odd grace. And Nathaniel, always present but always distant, never sharing meals despite Julian's repeated invitations. In this house, daylight didn't behave like anywhere else. Every pane was UV treated and warded, sun made into something dull and harmless behind glass. Direct sunlight blistered their kind, filtered light merely gilded edges. They settled on the floor with art supplies. Julian chattered while coloring. But Claire's mind wandered. She'd been here a dozen times now. Never once had she seen Nathaniel eat. Not even a snack. Just water. Endless water in crystal glasses. Where do you go to school, Julian? She asked it casually, adding green to a dinosaur's scales. I don't. Julian didn't look up from his drawing. I have tutors. They come here. Don't you want to be around other kids? Daddy says regular school isn't safe for me. His small hands gripped the crayon tighter. Because of what happened to Mommy. Claire's stomach tightened. She'd assumed Evelyn's death was a random tragedy. But safe implied ongoing threat, implied danger that still existed. Nathaniel appeared in the doorway as if summoned by her thoughts. He wore dark slacks and a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, his white hair pulled back in a low ponytail. Beautiful and intimidating in equal measure. How is work? He asked, leaning against the doorframe. Busy. Tuesday lunch rush. Claire set down her crayon. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why don't you ever eat with us? The room temperature seemed to drop. Julian's crayon froze mid-stroke. Nathaniel's expression remained perfectly neutral, but something flickered behind his gray eyes. Medical condition. His voice was smooth. I told you before. What kind of condition? A rare one. He pushed off the doorframe. Claire, can I show you something in my study? Julian, keep drawing. We'll be right back. Julian nodded, but his small face had gone tense. Claire followed Nathaniel down the hall to a room she'd never entered. The study was all dark wood and leather furniture, bookshelves climbing to the ceiling. It felt ancient, despite the modern laptop on the desk. You're observant. Nathaniel closed the door. I knew you would be eventually. What's going on? Claire crossed her arms. And please don't give me another vague answer. I've been coming here for a month. I care about Julian. I deserve honesty. You do. He moved to the window, his back to her. The truth is complicated. Most truths are. Silence stretched between them. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. My wife didn't die in a random attack. Nathaniel's voice was quiet. She was murdered, targeted specifically because of what she was. What we are. Claire's heart hammered. What you are. He turned to face her, and his eyes caught the dying light, reflecting it back in a way that was distinctly inhuman. There's a world that exists alongside yours. Hidden. Ancient. Dangerous. I don't understand. I know. He took a step closer. And I'm going to tell you everything. But first, you need to know that once you hear this, you can't unhear it. Your life will be different. Complicated. It's already complicated. Claire's hands trembled, but she kept her voice steady. Tell me. Nathaniel took a breath he didn't need. I'm a vampire. Julian is half vampire. My wife was human, like you. But she chose to be transformed after we married. 2 years ago, she was killed by rival vampires who wanted to destabilize my position. Julian witnessed it. That's why he stopped speaking. The words hung in the air between them, impossible and terrifying and somehow making perfect sense. Claire's legs felt weak. She sat down hard in the nearest chair. That's insane. Yes, vampires aren't real. We are. Nathaniel stayed by the window, giving her space. We've existed for millennia. There are protocols, treaties, a whole society you've never seen. We live alongside humans, hidden, because exposure would mean war. Claire's mind raced through every interaction, every strange detail. The staff. They're all vampires, yes. This house is a safe haven. And Julian, half human, half vampire. He'll age normally until his 20s, then the aging will slow dramatically. He has enhanced strength and senses, but he's still a child. Still vulnerable. Claire stood abruptly. I need to go. I understand. Nathaniel didn't move to stop her. If you don't want to come back, I'll explain to Julian that I need to think. She headed for the door. I need time. Take all the time you need. Claire drove home in a daze, her hands gripping the steering wheel too tight. At her apartment, she sat on the couch and stared at the wall until darkness filled the room. Vampires. Nathaniel was a vampire. Julian was half vampire. It was ridiculous. Impossible. But it explained everything. The cold skin when Nathaniel had briefly touched her hand. The way he moved too smoothly. Julian's occasional displays of strength that seemed excessive for a 7-year-old. The security measures. The isolation. For 3 days, Claire went to work and came home and tried to process. She researched online, finding folklore and fiction, but nothing that felt true. She avoided Nathaniel's texts, his polite inquiries about whether she was all right. On the 4th day, Dale pulled her aside during her shift. You haven't been yourself. He wiped down the counter. Everything okay? I found out something about the Winters family. Claire stacked clean plates. Something big. They're wealthy and secretive. Not surprising they have secrets. It's bigger than that. Dale studied her face. Does it change how you feel about the kid? No. The answer came immediately. Julian is still Julian. Sweet and smart and healing. Then maybe the secret doesn't matter as much as the person. Claire went home that night and looked at her late husband's photograph. I don't know what to do, she whispered to the image. This is so far beyond normal. The photo offered no answers, but in the silence, Claire remembered Julian's laugh. The way he'd hugged her when she taught him to make chocolate chip cookies. The progress he'd made from complete silence to endless chatter. On the 8th day, she drove to the mansion without calling first. Julian opened the door. He looked terrible. Pale, with dark circles under his eyes, thin again. When he saw her, his eyes filled with tears. You came back. His voice was small, rusty. I thought you left forever. Claire knelt and pulled him into her arms. I'm sorry. I needed time to think. Because of what Daddy told you? Julian pulled back to look at her. Because we're different? Yes. But I'm here now. Are you scared of us? Claire considered lying, then decided he deserved honesty. A little. But I'm more scared of losing you. Julian hugged her tighter. I missed you so much. Nathaniel appeared in the doorway, and Claire's breath caught. He looked worse than Julian, if that was possible. His face was drawn, his eyes haunted. Can we talk? Claire asked. He nodded and led her to the study while Julian went to wash his face. They stood on opposite sides of the room, a gulf of uncertainty between them. I researched. Claire spoke first. I couldn't find much, but what I found, the folklore, the legends, mostly wrong. Nathaniel's hands were clasped behind his back. We're not magical creatures. We're biological. Enhanced humans with specific needs and vulnerabilities. Blood. Yes. Do you hurt people? No. His voice was firm. I haven't harmed a human in over 200 years. I have ethical sources. Claire processed this. And Julian? Will need blood eventually when he's older. Right now he's young enough that his human side dominates. He eats regular food. What happened to Evelyn? Nathaniel's jaw tightened. Political assassination. I'm the vampire king. I govern our kind, enforce our laws, maintain the peace between our world and yours. Some vampires wanted my position. They killed my wife to weaken me. Are they still a threat? I eliminated them. Something cold flashed in his eyes. Permanently. Claire shivered. And me? Now that I know, am I in danger? I've already extended you my protection. Every vampire in this territory knows you're under my authority. They won't touch you. But other humans don't know about this world. Very few. Those who discover us either join us, are protected by us, or... He trailed off. Or what? Or we make them forget. Memory alteration. It's not pleasant, but sometimes it's necessary. Claire's stomach turned. Could you make me forget? Yes. His eyes met hers. But I won't. Not unless you ask me to. She sat down in the leather chair, her mind whirling. This is insane. My life was normal. I went to work. I paid my bills. I visited my aunt. Now I'm standing in a vampire's study discussing memory alteration. You can walk away. Nathaniel's voice was gentle. I won't stop you. I won't make you forget. You can leave and never come back. And I'll find another way to help Julian. He'll break again. Probably. The admission cost him. But your safety and comfort are more important than... I don't want to leave. The words surprised her as much as him. I'm scared. I'm confused. But Julian needs me. And I need him too, in a way I didn't expect. So if there are rules, protocols, things I need to know to stay safe, teach me. Nathaniel stared at her. You're choosing to stay. Knowing what we are. I'm choosing Julian. And maybe... She stopped, not ready to finish that thought. Maybe what? Maybe I'm choosing to live again instead of just existing. Something shifted in Nathaniel's expression, softening the hard edges. I'll protect you. I swear it. And I won't ask you to change, to become like us. You can remain human. Remain yourself. Good. Because I like myself human. Claire stood. But I need to make some changes. My work schedule, it's getting complicated. I'm going to ask Dale if I can switch to day shifts only. Mornings and early afternoons. That way I can visit here in the evenings. You don't have to... I want to. But I'm keeping my job. I need my independence, my own money, my own life outside this mansion. I respect that. Nathaniel moved closer. If you need anything, financial help, security, anything at all, I'll ask. But don't try to take care of me like I'm fragile. I've survived loss. I can survive this too. You're stronger than you know. Their eyes held, and Claire felt something electric pass between them. Something that had nothing to do with vampires and everything to do with two broken people learning to live again. I should go talk to Julian. She broke the moment, moving toward the door. He was terrified I'd abandoned him. Claire, Nathaniel's voice stopped her. Thank you. For coming back. For not running. Thank you for telling me the truth. She found Julian in his room, sitting on his bed with red-rimmed eyes. When she sat beside him, he immediately curled into her side. I'm not going anywhere. She stroked his hair. You're stuck with me now. Even though we're vampires? Even though you're vampires. She kissed the top of his head. You're still Julian. Still my friend. That doesn't change. Daddy said you might be scared. I am a little. But being scared doesn't mean running away. Sometimes it means being brave enough to stay. Julian looked up at her with those ancient gray eyes in a child's face. You're very brave, Miss Claire. So are you, Julian. So are you. They sat together as darkness fell outside. A human woman and a half-vampire child, building something new from the ruins of their shared grief. And downstairs, Nathaniel stood alone in his study, allowing himself to hope for the first time in 2 years that maybe, just maybe, his shattered family could heal. Chapter 5. Learning to Feel. She kept replaying his medical condition. Not untrue, just the human translation of a biological reality that belonged to a hidden world. Claire adjusted her schedule at the Roasted Oak 2 weeks after learning the truth. Dale didn't ask questions when she requested mornings only, 10 to 3, Tuesday through Saturday. He simply nodded and made the changes, though his weathered face showed concern. You're still eating, right? He asked, handing her the updated schedule. You look thin. I'm eating. She wasn't. Not much. But that was temporary. Stress did that. The new routine settled quickly. Claire worked her shifts, went home to shower and change, then drove to the Winters mansion 3 afternoons a week. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 4 to 8 in the evening. Structured. Safe. A pattern she could hold on to while her understanding of reality shifted. Julian was thriving. In the 6 weeks since that first dinner, he'd transformed completely. He spoke in full sentences now, his vocabulary expanding daily. He laughed, a sound that filled the mansion's empty spaces with life. He asked endless questions about everything from why the sky was blue to whether dinosaurs would have liked pizza. Miss Claire, look. He ran toward her the moment she arrived on Monday, waving a paper covered in crayon drawings. I made a family portrait. See? That's Daddy, that's me, and that's you. Claire took the drawing, her throat tight. 3 stick figures holding hands. One tall with white hair, one small with black hair, one medium with reddish-brown scribbles. It's beautiful, Julian. We look happy, right? His gray eyes searched her face. Very happy. They were in the garden that afternoon, Julian showing her the rose bushes that hadn't bloomed since Evelyn died. The thorny stems were alive but barren, as if they too were grieving. Daddy says Mommy used to sing to them. Julian touched a stem carefully. He tried, but they didn't like his voice. Plants are particular. Claire knelt beside him. Maybe they need time, like people do. Do you think they'll ever bloom again? I think they will, when they're ready. Julian was quiet for a moment, his small fingers tracing the pattern of thorns. Then he looked at her with that direct intensity children possessed. Friend Claire, can you be my new mommy? The question landed between them, heavy and impossible. Claire's heart hammered. Behind them, she heard footsteps stop. Nathaniel had been approaching but now stood frozen. Julian, Claire chose her words carefully. Come sit with me. They settled on the stone bench beneath the willow tree. Nathaniel joined them, sitting on Julian's other side. The boy looked between them, waiting. Sweetheart, I need you to understand something important. Claire took his small hand. Your mommy was a special person. She loved you so much. Nobody can replace her. Ever. Julian's face fell. But you're special too. I am. Claire squeezed his hand. But I'm special in a different way. I'm friend Claire. Your daddy's wife was your mommy. Those are 2 different things. Why can't you be both? Tears welled in his eyes. Nathaniel spoke, his voice gentle. Because love doesn't replace other love, Julian. It grows beside it. Your mother will always be your mother. Claire is someone new, someone wonderful, but she's herself, not a replacement. I don't understand. Julian's lower lip trembled. Think of it this way. Claire shifted to face him. You love your daddy, right? Yes. And you loved your mommy? Yes. Did loving your daddy mean you loved your mommy less? No. Understanding flickered in his eyes. Exactly. You can love lots of people, all in different ways. Your mommy is your mommy forever. I'm friend Claire. Both can be true. Julian processed this, his young mind working through the concept. So you won't leave? Even if you're not my new mommy? I won't leave. Claire pulled him into a hug. I promise. Can you stay forever, though? He pulled back to look at her. Like, live here and everything? Claire glanced at Nathaniel, who looked equally caught off guard. That's complicated, Julian. Why? Because I have my own home, my own life. Coming to visit is one thing. Living here is different. But we have lots of rooms. Julian's voice turned pleading. And Daddy's lonely. And I'm lonely. And you could have the room next to mine, and we could have breakfast together and… Julian. Nathaniel's hand rested on his son's shoulder. Claire has to want to stay. We can't force her. I'm not ready for that. Claire said it gently but firmly. I like visiting. I like our time together. But moving in, that's a big decision. One I need to think about. Julian's face crumpled, but he nodded. Okay, but you'll keep thinking about it? I'll keep thinking about it. That night, after Julian had gone to bed, Claire found herself in the library with Nathaniel. It had become their ritual, these late conversations while the house settled into silence. He's getting attached. Nathaniel poured water into crystal glasses. Maybe too attached. Is there such a thing? Claire accepted the glass. After what he's been through, attachment seems healthy. Until you decide this is too much and leave. I'm not going anywhere. She met his eyes. I told you that. People change their minds. He sat in the chair across from her, the fireplace crackling between them. They realize they've waded into something deeper than intended and they panic. Is that what happened with Evelyn? The question surprised them both. Nathaniel's fingers tightened around his glass. No. Evelyn knew what she was getting into. She chose transformation. Chose this life. His voice was quiet. But you're different. You want to stay human. That limits what we can be to each other. What do you want us to be? The air between them shifted, charged with something they'd both been avoiding. I don't know. Nathaniel's eyes met hers. I find myself thinking about you when you're not here, watching for your car in the driveway, listening for your laugh. That terrifies me. Why? Because it feels like betrayal. He set down his glass. Evelyn's been gone 2 years, but falling for someone who looks like her, it seems wrong. Like I'm trying to recreate what I lost. You're not, though. Claire leaned forward. I'm nothing like her. I've seen photos. We look similar, yes, but I'm louder, messier. I ask too many questions. I can't sing. I'm clumsy. We're completely different people. I know that. His voice was rough. Rationally, I know. But the guilt remains. I understand guilt. Claire's own hand shook slightly. My husband died 3 years ago. For a long time, I thought I'd never feel anything for anyone again. That it would be disloyal to his memory. And now? Now I'm sitting in a vampire's library, talking to a man who makes my heart race, feeling guilty and terrified and alive all at once. Nathaniel stood abruptly, moving to the window. Claire followed, stopping just behind him. This is complicated. He didn't turn around. Everything worth having is complicated. He turned then, and they were suddenly too close. Close enough that Claire could see silver flecks in his gray eyes. Close enough to feel the cold that emanated from his skin. If we do this, Nathaniel's voice was barely above a whisper. If we let this be something, there's no going back. You'll be tied to my world, to dangers you can't imagine. I'm already tied to it. Through Julian. Through caring about both of you. Claire, she didn't know who moved first. Maybe both of them. But suddenly the distance between them vanished, and his hand cupped her face and her breath caught, and they both pulled back simultaneously. I'm sorry. Nathaniel stepped away, running his hand through his white hair. That was inappropriate. No, I'm sorry. Claire's cheeks burned. This is too fast, too complicated. You're Julian's father, you're not just anything. His eyes blazed. But you're right. This is too fast. They stood on opposite sides of the room, the almost kiss hanging between them. I should go. Claire grabbed her jacket from the chair. It's late. Claire, wait. She paused at the door. Wednesday? Nathaniel's voice was uncertain. You'll still come Wednesday? Yes. She managed a small smile. I promised Julian, and I keep my promises. She drove home with her heart hammering, touching her lips where his hand had almost reached. In her apartment, she sat in the darkness and let herself admit the truth. She was falling for Nathaniel Winters, and that terrified her more than vampires ever could. Wednesday arrived with autumn rain. Claire showed up as promised, shaking water from her jacket. Julian met her with a new project. We're making a memory box. He pulled her toward the dining room where craft supplies covered the table. Miss Imogen said it helps with sad feelings. Miss Imogen? Claire looked at Nathaniel, who'd appeared in the doorway. Dr. Imogen Hartley. She's a therapist. Works with vampire and human children. He kept his distance. Professional. I thought Julian might benefit. She's nice. Julian was already decorating a shoebox with markers. She has red hair and she smells like vanilla. She suggested creating a memory box for Evelyn. Nathaniel explained. A physical place for Julian's grief. They spent the afternoon filling the box with memories. Julian added drawings he'd made with his mother. A dried rose from the garden. A photo of Evelyn laughing. A small toy car she'd given him. This helps? Julian asked, arranging items carefully. It helps, Claire assured him. It means your mommy has a special place. You can visit these memories whenever you want. And then I can be happy again without forgetting her? Exactly. Nathaniel watched from across the room, his expression unreadable. When Julian ran to get more photos, he approached Claire. Jeffrey and Imogen want to meet you properly. He said it quietly. My advisors. They need to assess whether you're a security risk. Am I? No, but protocol demands it. They arrived on Friday evening. Jeffrey was tall and lean with dark hair streaked silver, wearing an expensive suit. Imogen was shorter, curvy, with bright red hair and warm brown eyes. Both moved with that inhuman grace Claire was learning to recognize. Miss Whitmore. Jeffrey's handshake was firm but cold. We've heard much about you. Good things, I hope. Complicated things. Imogen smiled, taking the edge off the words. But Julian speaks of you constantly. That's recommendation enough. They sat in the formal living room, Julian playing upstairs. The vampires asked questions. What did Claire want from this arrangement? Did she understand the dangers? Was she prepared for the scrutiny that came with being close to the vampire king? Claire answered honestly. She was here for Julian. She was learning about their world. She was taking appropriate precautions. She had no intention of betraying their secrets or exploiting the relationship. And Nathaniel? Imogen asked gently. Where does he fit in your plans? I don't have plans. Claire met her eyes. I'm taking this day by day. Smart woman. Jeffrey nodded approval. Vampires are long-term thinkers. It's refreshing to meet someone who lives in the present. Before they left, Imogen pulled Claire aside. He cries now. She said it softly. Nathaniel. For the first time since Evelyn died. You've given him permission to grieve. I haven't done anything. You've done everything. Imogen squeezed her hand. Keep being yourself. That's all they need. Later, after Julian slept and Claire prepared to leave, Nathaniel walked her to her car. They liked you, he said. They terrified me. Good. They're supposed to. He smiled, and it transformed his face. But you held your ground. Impressed them. Nathaniel. Claire turned to face him in the darkness. That almost kiss. We need to talk about it. I know. But not tonight. Tonight I'm exhausted and confused, and if we talk now, I'll say something stupid. Next week, then. Next week. She drove away, watching him in her rearview mirror until the mansion disappeared. In the library window, she could have sworn she saw him raise one hand in farewell. The box of Evelyn's memories sat on Julian's shelf. Claire's presence filled the halls, and Nathaniel stood alone in the dark, learning that loving again meant accepting both joy and terror in equal measure. Chapter 6. Standing Together. 3 months had passed since that first dinner at the Roasted Oak. Claire had become part of the Winters household's rhythm, her presence as natural as the change of seasons. Julian was a different child entirely, vibrant and talkative, his trauma healing slowly but surely. Then everything changed on a Tuesday morning. Nathaniel called while Claire was stacking plates at the restaurant. His voice was tight, controlled in a way that meant something was very wrong. We need to talk. Tonight. Before you come over. What happened? Morgana Hightower filed a formal challenge with the Assembly. She's questioning my leadership, using you as evidence of compromised judgment. Claire's hands went numb. Who is Morgana Hightower? Leader of the Northern Covens. She's wanted my position for decades. Now she has ammunition. The Assembly convened in 3 days. Nathaniel would have to defend his relationship with Claire in front of 50 vampires, all of whom would be judging whether the Vampire King had become weak, distracted, vulnerable. Claire drove to the mansion that evening with her stomach in knots. Julian met her at the door, his small face creased with worry. Daddy's been in his study all day. He won't talk to me. It's okay, sweetheart. We're just dealing with some grown-up things. Claire hugged him. Why don't you go play? I'll come find you in a bit. She found Nathaniel surrounded by papers, his white hair disheveled, shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there yesterday. Tell me everything. Claire closed the door. He explained the Assembly, the formal challenge, the accusations. that he was compromised, that a human who resembled his dead wife had clouded his judgment, that he was putting their entire society at risk by allowing an outsider into his inner circle. She's right about some of it. Nathaniel's voice was hollow. I am distracted. I do think about you constantly. Maybe I have compromised my position. Then I'll leave. The words tore out of Claire. I'll disappear. You can tell them it was temporary, that you've handled it. No. His head snapped up. Absolutely not. Nathaniel, this is your position. Your authority. Everything you've built for 400 years. I won't let me destroy that. You're not destroying anything. Morgana is using you as an excuse, but this challenge was inevitable. She's been waiting for any opportunity. Then I'm the opportunity. Remove me from the equation. They argued in circles, voices rising, until a small sound at the door stopped them both. Julian stood in the doorway, tears streaming down his face. You're leaving? Miss Claire, you promised you wouldn't leave. Oh, sweetheart. Claire dropped to her knees. I'm not. You just said you'd disappear. His voice cracked. You said you'd go away. Just like Mommy went away. Everyone leaves. Everyone dies or goes away, and I'm always alone. Julian, Nathaniel started. No. The boy's small hands clenched into fists. You said we were safe now. You said Miss Claire was staying. You lied. He ran. They heard his bedroom door slam. Then silence. Claire and Nathaniel looked at each other across the study. We can't let him think I'm abandoning him. Claire's voice shook. No, we can't. Nathaniel moved closer. Which means we face this. Together. Together. The assembly met in an underground chamber beneath the city, accessed through a restaurant that closed early on Thursday nights. Claire wore a simple black dress, her hair pulled back, trying to look dignified despite her terror. Nathaniel had insisted she attend. If they were going to judge her, she would face them. The chamber was massive, circular, lit by chandeliers that cast everything in amber light. 50 vampires sat in a semicircle, all of them ancient, all of them powerful. At the center sat a woman who could only be Morgana. She was stunning. Dark skin, silver hair braided with gold thread, wearing a gown that probably cost more than Claire's car. Her eyes were pure amber, and they fixed on Claire with predatory interest. The human joins us. Morgana's voice carried through the chamber. How unexpected, and how telling. Claire Whitmore is here as my guest. Nathaniel stood beside her, his presence radiating authority. She has every right to witness these proceedings. Does she now? Morgana smiled. Shall we begin then? The formal challenge was read. Morgana's accusations laid bare. Nathaniel had allowed emotion to cloud judgment. He had brought a human into his confidence without proper vetting. He had formed an attachment that made him vulnerable, distracted, weak. And this human, Morgana gestured to Claire, looks remarkably like his dead wife. How convenient. How Freudian. The great vampire king, undone by a pretty face that reminds him of what he lost. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Claire felt 50 pairs of eyes examining her, judging her, finding her wanting. Nathaniel stepped forward. May I respond? Please. Morgana sat back, confident. I loved my wife. Nathaniel's voice was steady. Evelyn was extraordinary, brilliant, kind, brave. Her death devastated me and my son. For 2 years we barely survived. We existed, but we didn't live. He turned, including the entire assembly in his gaze. Then Claire walked into our lives. Yes, she resembles Evelyn physically, but she is not Evelyn. She's louder, messier, asks too many questions, can't carry a tune. She's herself, completely and wonderfully herself. How touching. Morgana's voice dripped sarcasm. But that doesn't address the security risk. She knows our secrets, because I chose to trust her. That trust has been earned over 3 months of watching her care for my son, of seeing her integrity, her strength. Nathaniel's eyes blazed. Julian spoke for the first time in 2 years because of her. He's healing because of her. I'm healing because of her. That's not weakness. That's survival. It's sentiment. Morgana stood. And sentiment makes you vulnerable. What happens when she ages? When she dies? Will you collapse again? Abandon your duties? Put us all at risk while you mourn?" The chamber fell silent. Nathaniel's jaw tightened. Love always involves the risk of loss. Always. Evelyn could have lived forever, and she was still taken from me. There are no guarantees. Not for vampires, not for humans. But love, connection, family, these are what make immortality bearable. Without them, we're just corpses walking through eternity. He looked at Claire then, and his voice softened. "She makes me remember what it means to be alive. If that's weakness, then I embrace it. I am still your king. I still enforce our laws, protect our people, maintain our security, but I will not apologize for loving again." The chamber erupted in whispers. Morgana's expression darkened. "And when she dies?" She pressed. "When time takes her, and you're left broken once more, then I'll grieve." Nathaniel's voice was firm. "And I'll survive, because she will have taught me that life, however brief, is worth living fully. That's more than I've learned in 400 years of merely existing." The assembly voted, 43-7 in Nathaniel's favor, but with conditions. Claire must undergo formal security training. She must learn vampire protocols, understand the dangers, prove she could protect their secrets. If she agreed, she would be formally recognized as under the Vampire King's protection. Claire stood, her legs trembling. "I agree, to all conditions." Morgana's eyes narrowed. "You understand what you're accepting. The scrutiny, the danger, the isolation from your own kind. I understand that I care about Nathaniel and Julian. Everything else is secondary." The assembly adjourned. Vampires filed out, some nodding respectfully to Claire, others eyeing her with suspicion. Morgana was the last to leave, pausing beside them. "This isn't over," she said it quietly. "You've won this round, Nathaniel, but love makes you predictable. And predictable creatures die." Then she was gone. Outside, under the stars, Claire finally let herself breathe. "That was terrifying. You were magnificent." Nathaniel took her hand, the first time he'd touched her since the almost kiss. Strong, composed, brave. "I was shaking the entire time. So was I." They stood in the parking lot, his hand warm against hers despite his cold skin. "I meant what I said in there." Nathaniel turned to face her. "About loving again. About you." Claire's heart hammered. "Nathaniel, I'm in love with you." The words rushed out. "I've been in love with you for weeks. Maybe since that first night when you sat with Julian and made him smile. I know it's complicated. I know you didn't ask for this, but I needed you to know. You're in love with me." Claire repeated, testing the words. Terrifyingly so. She laughed, the sound bubbling up from somewhere deep. "Good. Because I'm in love with you too. And it's the most inconvenient thing that's ever happened to me." He cupped her face with both hands. "May I kiss you? Please." This kiss wasn't hesitant or uncertain. It was sure and deep and full of months of longing held back. Claire's hands fisted in his shirt. His arms pulled her closer. The parking lot disappeared. The assembly disappeared. Everything disappeared except the feeling of finally letting themselves feel. When they pulled apart, both were breathless. "I love you." Nathaniel whispered it against her lips. "I love you too." They drove home separately, but Claire followed him back to the mansion. Julian was still awake, sitting on the stairs in his pajamas. "Are you together now?" he asked the moment they walked in. Nathaniel and Claire looked at each other, then at him. "We're trying," Nathaniel said honestly. "Is that okay?" Julian launched himself at them, wrapping his arms around both their legs. Yes, it's okay. It's the best thing ever." Claire ran her fingers through his hair. "We're not rushing anything. And I'm not trying to be your new mommy." "I know." Julian looked up at them. "You're Miss Claire." "That's good enough." That night, after Julian finally went to sleep, Claire and Nathaniel sat in the library, not speaking, just being together. "The training starts next week," Nathaniel said eventually. "Imogen will teach you protocols, security, how to recognize threats. I'll do whatever it takes." "I know you will." He pulled her closer. "We're in this now. Together. Together. She agreed. Outside, the moon rose over the garden where Evelyn's roses still refused to bloom. But inside, 3 broken people were slowly learning to be whole again, learning that love didn't erase loss, but it made survival worth the effort, and sometimes that was enough. Chapter 7. Building Home. The security training began the following Monday. Imogen arrived at 9 a.m. sharp, carrying a leather briefcase that looked older than Claire's grandmother. 6 weeks. Imogen set the briefcase on the dining table. We'll meet 3 times a week. By the end, you'll know how to identify hostile vampires, recognize protection symbols, understand our hierarchy, and most importantly, how to survive if something goes wrong. Claire poured coffee she'd learned Imogen actually enjoyed, unlike most vampires. What's the first lesson? Recognition. Imogen pulled out photographs. These are the major players in our world. Memorize their faces, their territories, their allegiances. They worked for 3 hours. Claire's brain felt full of information about covens and territories and ancient grudges that spanned centuries. When Imogen finally packed up, Claire's head throbbed. You did well. Imogen paused at the door. Most humans panic at this point. You're taking notes like you're studying for a college exam. I was always good at tests. Claire managed a tired smile. The weeks blurred together. Training sessions with Imogen. Morning shifts at the Roasted Oak where Dale pretended not to notice how distracted she'd become. Afternoons and evenings at the mansion with Julian and Nathaniel. Her apartment grew dusty. She found herself packing overnight bags more frequently, staying at the mansion 4 nights a week. Her toothbrush appeared in Nathaniel's bathroom. Her favorite tea filled a cabinet in his kitchen. Slow infiltration of her life into his. You're practically living here, Nathaniel observed one evening, watching her curl up on his study couch with a book. I still have my apartment. I know. I'm not complaining. He set aside his paperwork. Just observing. Does it bother you? No. He moved to sit beside her. It feels right. Like you belong here. Claire set down her book. They'd been officially together for 6 weeks now. But physical intimacy had remained careful, restrained. Kisses goodnight, hands held, nothing more. I'm not ready to give up my independence completely. She said it gently. The apartment, the job, those are mine. They remind me I'm still me. I would never ask you to give them up. Nathaniel's fingers traced patterns on her palm. I love that you're stubborn about maintaining your own life, even when it's inconvenient. Especially then. They were learning each other. Nathaniel liked classical music. Claire preferred rock. He read philosophy. She devoured romance novels. He was methodical, planning everything. She was spontaneous, making decisions on impulse. The differences created friction sometimes, like when Lydia appeared. Council business, Lydia purred, and a message you won't want delivered in public. She arrived on a Thursday evening, tall and ethereal, with platinum hair and a dress that probably cost more than Claire's car. She swept into the mansion like she owned it, kissing Nathaniel's cheek with familiar ease. Darling, it's been too long. Her accent was British, posh, centuries old. Her eyes slid to Claire with barely concealed disdain. And who is this? Claire Whitmore. Nathaniel's hand found Claire's lower back. My partner. Claire, this is Lydia Ashcroft. We knew each other decades ago. We were lovers, Lydia corrected, smiling sweetly. For 30 years, if memory serves. Such a delicious time. Claire felt something ugly twist in her stomach. 30 years. She'd been alive for 28. That was a century ago, Lydia. Nathaniel's voice cooled. What brings you here? Council business, naturally. I'm passing through. Lydia settled onto the couch like a cat claiming territory. Though I had hoped we might catch up, for old time's sake. Claire excused herself, claiming she needed to check on Julian. Upstairs, she found the boy in his room, drawing. Miss Claire, you look sad. He patted the floor beside him. Just thinking. She sat, accepting a crayon he offered. About Daddy? How did you know? You always look soft when you think about Daddy. But this is different soft. Like sad soft. Julian added purple to his dinosaur. Did someone make you sad? There's a lady downstairs. She used to date your daddy a long time ago. Before Mommy? Way before your mommy. Julian processed this. Are you worried Daddy likes her better? Kids saw everything. Maybe a little. That's silly. Julian leaned against her shoulder. Daddy looks at you the way he looked at Mommy. Like you're the best thing ever. He never looked at anyone else that way. You remember that? I remember everything about Mommy. His voice went quiet. The good stuff doesn't go away just because she did. Claire hugged him tight. This wise little boy who'd survived so much. When she returned downstairs, Lydia was leaving. Nathaniel stood at the door, his expression carefully neutral. She's gone, he said when Claire appeared. She's beautiful and immortal, and shares 100 years of history with you. Yes, I'm human. I'll age. I'll die. I'm a blip in your timeline. Nathaniel closed the distance between them. You're not a blip. You're everything. Lydia is the past. A pleasant memory, but nothing more. You're my present. And if you'll have me, my future. For how long? 50 years if I'm lucky? Then what? Then I'll have had 50 years with you. 50 years of watching you smile, hearing you laugh, holding you while you sleep. Some vampires exist for millennia and never experience what I feel for you. His hands cupped her face. I would rather have 50 years of real love than 1,000 years of emptiness. What about transformation? Claire asked the question that had been hovering between them. Would you want me to become like you? Eventually? Only if you wanted it. Never as an obligation. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. I love you, human. I'll love you, immortal. The choice is always yours. I'm not ready to decide that now. I know, and that's okay. They stood in the foyer, holding each other, working through the complications of loving across species and lifespans. Over the next weeks, other challenges emerged. Nathaniel's 400-year-old manners sometimes clashed with Claire's modern sensibilities. He held doors, pulled out chairs, spoke with a formality that felt stifling. You don't have to treat me like porcelain, she said one evening after he'd insisted on carrying her bag that weighed maybe 5 pounds. Old habits. I'm independent. I can carry my own things. I know you can. I like doing things for you. It feels patronizing sometimes. They argued, made up, learned to compromise. He stopped hovering quite so much. She let him open doors without commentary. Small accommodations that built something stronger. Julian watched them navigate their relationship with the focused intensity of a child trying to understand adult dynamics. One Saturday afternoon, while they were baking cookies, he dropped flour on the floor and immediately said, Claire, Mom, I made a mess. The kitchen went silent. Julian's eyes widened. I mean, friend Claire. Sorry, I didn't mean... Wait. Claire knelt beside him. Say that again. Claire, Mom? His voice was uncertain. Nathaniel appeared in the doorway, drawn by the sudden quiet. Is that what you want to call me? Claire asked gently. Sometimes. When I'm really happy. Like now. Julian's hands twisted together. Is that okay? You said you weren't my new mommy. You're right. I'm not your mommy. Your mommy is your mommy forever. Claire took his floury hands. But if you want to call me Claire Mom, especially when you're feeling happy and safe, that's okay with me. Really? Really. She looked at Nathaniel, who nodded, his eyes bright. What about when I'm regular happy? Not super happy? Julian asked. Then friend Claire still works perfectly. So I can pick, depending on how I feel? Exactly. Julian tested it out. Friend Claire for regular. Claire Mom for really good days. Perfect. Claire pulled him into a hug, getting flour all over both of them. Later that week, Nathaniel suggested something Claire had been dreading. I think we should visit Evelyn's grave. The 3 of us. Together. The cemetery sat on a hill overlooking the city. White roses grew wild among the headstones, exactly like Nathaniel had described. Evelyn's grave was simple. A marble stone with her name, dates, and a single line. Beloved wife and mother. Julian held both their hands as they stood before it. Hi, Mommy. His voice was small. I brought some people to meet you. Well, you already know Daddy. But this is Miss Claire. She's been helping me feel better. Claire knelt, placing the bouquet of white roses she'd brought. "Hi, Evelyn. I hope it's okay that I'm here. I just wanted to say thank you." "Thank you." Nathaniel's voice was rough. "For loving them so well. For giving Julian such a strong foundation that even when you left, he could find his way back. For teaching Nathaniel what real love looks like." Claire touched the cold marble. "I'm not trying to replace you. I could never. But I promise I'll take care of them. Both of them." Tears streamed down her face. Beside her, Nathaniel was crying too, silent and devastating. Julian wrapped his arms around both of them. "Mommy would like you," Julian said. "I think she sent you to us." They stayed until the sun began setting, 3 people finding peace in shared grief. Over the following weeks, word spread through the vampire community about the human woman close to the vampire king. Other mixed families started reaching out. A vampire woman struggling to explain her nature to her human girlfriend. A human man trying to understand his vampire partner's need for blood. A teenage half-vampire like Julian, feeling isolated and strange. Claire found herself offering advice, sharing her experience, mediating between species with completely different worldviews. "You're good at this," Imogen observed during one of their final training sessions. "Building bridges between our worlds. I'm just talking to people. You're translating, making both sides feel heard." Imogen smiled. "That's a rare skill." When the 6 weeks of training ended, Claire passed every test Imogen gave her. She could recognize threat patterns, new emergency protocols, understood vampire politics enough to navigate carefully. "You're officially certified." Imogen handed her a small card. "This marks you as under the Vampire King's protection. Any vampire in this territory sees this. They know to leave you alone." Claire stared at the card, her name in elegant script. Nathaniel's seal pressed into the corner. Official recognition of what she'd become. That night, lying in Nathaniel's bed with his arm around her waist, Claire finally said it. "I think I'm ready." "Ready for what?" "To stay. Really stay. Not just visiting. Actually living here. With you and Julian." Nathaniel went very still. "You're sure?" "I'll keep my apartment. Keep working mornings at the restaurant. But this is home now. You're home." She turned to face him in the darkness. "Both of you." He kissed her then, deep and thorough, and full of promise. "I love you. I love you too." Outside, in the garden, a single white rose had bloomed on Evelyn's bushes. The first in 2 years. As if the house itself recognized that healing had finally come. By week 6, Imogen pressed a wax seal against Claire's wrist. Cool, fleeting pressure. And the sigil bloomed invisible under skin. A promise recognized by every vampire in the territory. Chapter 8. Forever starts. Now. Months earlier, after a therapy session, Julian had asked if he could call her Claire Mom on good days. Not to replace Mommy, just to say my heart feels big. Claire had looked to Nathaniel. He'd nodded once. "Good days only," she'd said. And Julian had beamed like sunrise. 1 year had passed since Julian whispered "Mommy" in a restaurant and changed 3 lives forever. Claire stood in front of her bathroom mirror, adjusting the simple cream-colored dress she'd chosen for tonight. Her reflection showed someone transformed. Not physically, though her cheeks had filled out from regular meals, and her eyes had lost their haunted quality. The transformation was deeper, written in the way she held herself, the confidence in her smile. Her apartment had become more storage than home. Most of her belongings had migrated to the mansion over the past months. She still paid rent, still kept the space as her safety net, but she slept in Nathaniel's bed more nights than not. Her phone buzzed. A text from Dale. "Big night tonight. We're all rooting for you." She smiled. Somehow her co-workers at the Roasted Oak had figured out something was happening, despite her attempts at discretion. She'd reduced her hours to 2 mornings a week, Tuesday and Friday, just enough to maintain her connection to the place where everything started. The new job had consumed the rest of her time. Consultant for Human-Vampire Relations, official title courtesy of Jeffrey's legal department. She mediated disputes, counseled mixed couples, helped human families understand their vampire relatives. Word had spread quickly through the supernatural community about the human woman who bridged both worlds with patience and wisdom. It paid well, too. not Winter's family wealth, but enough that she could have left the restaurant entirely. She chose not to. Those 2 mornings grounded her, reminded her she was still Claire Whitmore from a small town, not just the Vampire King's partner. A knock on her door. Nathaniel stood in the hallway, wearing a dark suit that made his white hair seem to glow. After a year together, he still took her breath away. Ready? He held out his hand. For what exactly? You've been mysterious all week. You'll see. That small smile played at his lips, the one that meant he was pleased with himself. They drove to the mansion where Julian waited on the front steps, practically vibrating with excitement. He'd grown in the past year, still small for 8 years old, but healthier, stronger. His gray eyes sparkled with life that had been absent when they first met. "Claire, Mom!" He launched himself at her the moment she stepped from the car. He'd taken to using the name regularly now, especially when happy or excited. "Tonight's so special. What's happening tonight?" She looked between him and Nathaniel. "Family meeting." Nathaniel's hand found her lower back, guiding her inside. In the garden. The rose garden had transformed over the year. Every bush bloomed now, white roses covering the space in fragrant abundance. String lights hung between trees, creating a canopy of stars. A small table sat in the center, set for 3. "Nathaniel, what is this?" He led her to the table, Julian bouncing beside them. They sat, the 3 of them in the place where Evelyn had once tended roses that refused to bloom. "1 year ago today, you walked into our lives," Nathaniel began. Julian spoke for the first time in 2 years. I remembered what it felt like to hope. "It's our anniversary," Julian added. "The day our family started." Claire's throat tightened. "You remembered the exact date?" "Every detail." Nathaniel reached across the table, taking her hand. "Claire Whitmore, this past year has been the most extraordinary of my 400-year existence. You've brought light into darkness, turned a house into a home, helped my son heal, and somehow loved a vampire king despite every reason not to. Nathaniel, let me finish." His thumb rubbed circles on her palm. "I'm not going to ask you to marry me traditionally. I'm not going to present you with expectations of forever or pressure you toward immortality. Instead, I'm going to ask if you want to build a life with us, however long that is, whatever form it takes. Just you, me, and Julian, figuring it out together." He pulled a small box from his jacket. Inside sat a ring, simple and elegant, with a single emerald the color of her eyes. "Will you marry me, Claire? Will you let us be your family officially?" Tears streamed down her face. "I have conditions." "Of course you do." Nathaniel smiled through his own tears. "Human wedding first. I want my aunt there. What's left of my family." Claire wiped her eyes. "And we revisit the transformation question every year. I'm not ready to decide about forever yet." "Agreed. And I keep working. Keep my independence." "Absolutely. And Julian gets to be ring bearer because he's clearly dying to ask." "Can I?" Julian's eyes went huge. "Really?" "Really, sweetheart." Claire looked at Nathaniel. "Then yes. Yes, I'll marry you." Nathaniel slipped the ring on her finger, then kissed her while Julian cheered, and the roses bloomed around them, and the universe felt perfectly aligned for one shining moment. The wedding happened 3 weeks later. Small ceremony, intimate gathering. Claire's aunt was brought from the nursing home, lucid enough to cry happy tears. Dale attended, representing the Roasted Oak family. Jeffrey and Imogen stood as witnesses for the vampire community. Julian served as ring bearer, carrying the bands with solemn importance. They mixed traditions. Human vows spoken under sunlight. Vampire blessing performed after dark. Claire wore white. Nathaniel wore black. Julian wore a tiny suit that made him look heartbreakingly grown up. When they kissed as husband and wife, Julian whooped loudly, making everyone laugh. At the reception, he gave a toast. "Friend Claire was nice to me when I was sad." His small voice carried through the room. "Then she became Claire Mom and made Daddy happy too. Now she's staying forever and we're a real family." Not a dry eye remained. Months passed in domestic bliss. Claire settled into married life, learning Nathaniel's rhythms, his occasional archaic habits, his deep well of tenderness buried under centuries of careful control. They argued about small things. like his insistence on opening every door and her tendency to leave books scattered everywhere. They laughed about large things, finding humor in the absurdity of their situation. Julian thrived in his special school for supernatural children. He made friends, brought home art projects, chattered endlessly about his day. The silent, traumatized child had become a vibrant, confident boy who knew his own worth. On the 1-year anniversary of their first meeting at the Roasted Oak, they returned to the restaurant as a family. The same table by the window, the same warm atmosphere, but everything was different now. A new waitress served them, young and nervous, clearly new to the job. She fumbled the menus, apologized too much, looked ready to cry when she dropped a pen. Julian watched her with thoughtful eyes. When she returned with their drinks, hands shaking, he smiled at her. "It's okay if you're nervous. Everyone gets nervous. You're doing great." The waitress's eyes filled with grateful tears. "Thank you. That's really kind." After she left, Julian looked at his parents. She looked scared, like I used to feel. I wanted to help. Claire reached across the table, squeezing his hand. Nathaniel's eyes shone with pride. "That was very thoughtful, Julian," Nathaniel said. "Friend Claire taught me that. Kindness helps." Julian went back to his menu. "Can I get the mac and cheese? For old times?" They ordered. They ate. They laughed together while other families did the same around them. Normal evening at a normal restaurant, except the father was a 400-year-old vampire king, the mother was a human consultant who mediated between species, and the son was a half-vampire child who'd found his voice again. After dinner, they walked to their car through the autumn evening. Julian held both their hands, swinging between them. "Are we happy?" he asked suddenly. "Yes." Claire and Nathaniel answered simultaneously. "Good." Julian smiled. "Me too. I miss Mommy sometimes still. But I'm happy now, too. Is that okay?" "That's more than okay." Claire lifted him up despite his protests that he was too big. "Love doesn't replace other love, remember? It grows beside it. I remember." Julian wrapped his arms around her neck. "I love you, Claire Mom." "I love you too, sweetheart." In the car, driving home through city streets that had witnessed their journey from strangers to family, Nathaniel reached for Claire's hand. "No regrets?" he asked quietly. "Only that I didn't meet you sooner. We met when we needed to. Not a moment too soon or too late." At home, they tucked Julian into bed. He insisted on a story, so Claire read while Nathaniel sat in the doorway, watching his family with an expression of complete contentment. Later, in their bedroom, Claire curled against Nathaniel's cool chest while he played with her hair. "I've been thinking about the transformation," she said into the darkness. "And, not yet, maybe not ever, but I want you to know I'm not afraid of forever anymore. If I choose it eventually, it'll be because I want more time with you, not because I feel pressured. That's all I've ever wanted. Your choice, made freely." They lay in comfortable silence, two souls who'd found each other against impossible odds. In his room, Julian slept peacefully, his dreams full of dinosaurs and dragons and families that stayed together. In the garden, white roses bloomed under moonlight. Evelyn's legacy transformed into something new. And in the mansion that had been a mausoleum for grief, life pulsed warm and bright and full of promise. Love didn't erase loss. It didn't replace what was gone. But it grew anyway, persistent as roses pushing through winter soil, stubborn as a child who refused to stop hoping, inevitable as a lonely king learning to feel again. Some stories ended in tragedy, others in triumph. This one ended in something better. It ended in beginning, again and again and again, forever, one day at a time.